government policy is obviously full of contradictions. It's really so ambivalent, it's not true. You've got on one hand the extending working lives policy of the DWP, recognising all of the changes that have been taking place in the demographic structures of our societies, with the declining birth rate, increased longevity, the fact that that really adds up to the necessity to continue at work. And by the way, we can talk about Bismarck, and I normally have a PowerPoint projection, throw a picture of him up on the screen behind with his brass hat, and I remarked that we thought we had problems with William Hague and his baseball hat, and everybody gives me a bit of a laugh at that, but there we are. I can't do it this time. But the fact is that Bismarck was the founder of the German state pension system, the first state to introduce the idea of an old age pension in, I think, 1887, and the retirement age was set at 70, and life expectancy at that time for the average male German was 47. And, you know, time has rolled on, and we now find ourselves in a situation where we have state pension age at 65, and of course life expectancy pushing 80 for men and going up. And we have the demographers, the soothsayers of the 21st century, telling us that by the year 2050 we're going to be having more or less 1 in every 3 people who are living to see 100. You know, incredible. Maybe I got the figures a little bit wrong. People who are being born today, 1 in 3 will live to see 100. So this is an amazing state of affairs, and we have you know, the spectacle of the Open Golf this weekend, a wonderful advertisement of Tom Watson, and everybody raving about the fact that this man could nearly win the Open at the age of 59. And then on the other hand, many other examples like that we all rejoice in. But the other side to the government policy is, of course, the age discrimination legislation that was introduced in 2006, quite rightly, and of course, with it, for the first time, a law that related to, in a sense, a statutory age of retirement, the National Default Retirement Age, which has served the purpose of, in a sense, legislating around fixed retirement, certainly for a great number of people, although we know that technically people have the right to ask and so forth. Plenty of people have found themselves fit and capable, wanting to work, needing to work because of their financial circumstances. They've got a family that is still young and so forth. There could be all sorts of reasons, and still being forced out of the workforce when they're capable of doing a good job. So these are really, you know, the bizarre twists and ambivalences of the present government policy.
This pamphlet is focused on is around the economic and social challenges that are facing young people, particularly in the current economic crisis. There are more young people staying in education than before, and as Chris highlighted, the demographic changes does mean that that might not necessarily be the case going forward. But we do see that participation will remain high, and we've seen applications to higher education going up year on year. With the education training leaving age changing as well, we expect participation to remain high. And during the last recession, unemployment caused considerable disadvantage and despair to a whole generation of young people. And so we're happy that the government, and we're quite supportive of the government focusing on youth unemployment at the moment, because we think obviously this is the thing that's affecting not only those graduates but school leavers at this given time. But more needs to be done to ensure that a whole host and a whole generation of young people are not lost to what is this current situation, and that young people are not left on the scrap heap. NUS we're not only being pressurising the government to do more in terms of graduate jobs, but also investing in education now to ensure that people are not kind of left out without the skills, without the ability to enter the job market when the job market might pick up, as hopefully we all hope it will do. So we welcome the announcement this week of an extra 10,000 places, but 10,000 is not going to cover just the applications that we've seen in the last couple of months. So we think that it's surely better to invest in education now than rather to leave these people without, as I said, the skills or the ability to enter further down the line.
I absolutely agree with the points Chris was making about it being really important that we work much harder to integrate older people in the workforce. And Chris makes the point in the pamphlet that actually often that's a really hard thing to say in a trade union arena, and particularly the public sector trade unions, I have to say, where any argument about raising retirement ages or extending working lives is attacked as us wanting to make people work till they drop. And I do think we've got to get away from those stereotypes. I don't want to be naive about it. I think it's not a coincidence that government wants to talk about extending working lives at the same time that government has realised that it can't perhaps afford a decent pension for everybody. I think those things are linked. So, but I don't say it. I don't say that we need to think about extending working lives for those reasons. I say we need to think about extending working lives for a kind of another old-fashioned reason, which is the reason that Chris mentioned, which is that idea of the dignity of work. And I think that's an old-fashioned concept that perhaps we need to resurrect. And throwing people on the scrap heap in fitter and fitter conditions seems to me madness. I won't digress to deconstruct figure 2 in this pamphlet, which I also disagree with, but obviously people can speak to me about that later. But I think the answer is not to argue that we just change individual behaviour. The answer is also to argue that we need to change work, we need to change the world of work. And I think we stand at a crossroads today where those new industries of banking and financial services seem to be going the same way as the old industries. And it might seem odd for me to say when I'm involved in financial services myself, but I'm not sure we should just mourn, we should necessarily mourn the passing of Coop and Clipping. Because I think we're actually really good at lots of things. We're really good at biotechnology, we're really good at pharmaceuticals, we're really good at energy production, we're really good at high-end engineering, we're really good at offshore research. And yet these are all areas that we frighten young people away from because we distrust science and rationality. And because we distrust science and rationality, we've also ditched economic analysis. Economic analysis today is so degenerate that we explain every problem in society by blaming individual behaviour. We blame greedy bankers, lazy workers and racist voters rather than establishing the real problems within the economy. And I think we undermine and devalue work by presenting the workplace as somewhere where you'll be bullied by the boss, harassed by your colleagues and stressed out by deadlines. Now, one of the questions we're meant to ask tonight is the question of what unions can do. And I've already nailed my colours to the mast of being very old-fashioned in arguing for poetry, economics and the dignity of work. I'm going to argue that unions need to be a bit more old-fashioned as well, because I think that the workplace is a public arena where both young people and old people, and people in the middle as it happens, can act in a collective way as makers of history. And I think there's a key role for the trade union movement to guide that. And by changing the world of work, I think we can transform it into a better place for all working people, young and old. Thank you.